Hello, Year 2, how are you? And welcome to today's English lesson. Now, in our English lesson yesterday, we looked at expanded noun phrases and we created expanded noun phrases to describe the hospital in Scutari when Florence Nightingale first arrived. Well, now, today, we're going to be moving on to exclamation sentences. Now, we looked at these when we did our diary entries for the Great Fire of London, but I wonder if you can remember what these are. So by the end of the lesson, you'll know what an exclamation mark is, you'll know what it's used for and how it can change a sentence. And you'll also know the different parts needed in an exclamation sentence. And you will have even written your own exclamation sentences that you can then use in your letter when you write it from Florence Nightingale to her family, telling them about her journey to Scutari and what she found when she was there. Now, a couple of days ago, we looked at adverbs of time. So I'd like to start this lesson with a retrieval activity on adverbs of time. So I'd like you to write 3 sentences about what you've done so far today. And each sentence needs to have an adverb of time in it. So could you pause the video now and have a go at writing 3 sentences for me? Okay, Year 2. So remember, an adverb of time answers the question of when something happens. So while you were doing this activity, I also had a go. Would you like to see my 3 sentences? So here you go. Here are my 3 sentences. My first one, I woke up. Now, what is my adverb of time in this sentence? Yes, that's right. It's when my alarm clock went off. So that is telling me when I woke up. One, I marked Year 2's work. And then we have the adverb of time after breakfast, and that is telling me when I marked Year 2's work. It was after breakfast. And then in the third one, what is my adverb of time? We had registration. Yes, we had registration at 9:15. So I've given a specific time there that we had registration. Now, have you included an adverb of time in each of your sentences? Fantastic. Well done if you have. Now, let's move on to today's learning. Now, we've got a friend on the next page. Are you ready? There you go. There's our friend. Can you see him smiling at us? Now, this is our friend, the exclamation mark. And the exclamation mark is a type of punctuation, just like a full stop and a question mark and a comma. Now, remember, we use a question mark at the end of a question, and we use a full stop at the end of the statement. So what do you think we use an exclamation mark for? Can you pause the video and have a think? Okay, Year 2, let's have a look. There are lots of different reasons why we use exclamation marks. The first one is to show surprise. So if you're surprised about something when you're writing a sentence, you can put an exclamation mark at the end. You can also use exclamation marks to add emphasis and show strength. So I've got some examples of this. I've written the same sentence twice, but in the first instance, I put a full stop at the end. And the second one, I've put an exclamation mark. Now I'm going to say these sentences. Can you tell me how they sound different? Okay, first one, how funny you are. The second one, how funny you are. Can you hear I'm putting more emphasis on my sentence when I've got an exclamation mark at the end? Let's try another one. What a lovely pie it is. What a lovely pie it is. Can you hear when I got my exclamation mark at the end? I put more emphasis on my sentence. So there you go. That's another reason why you use an exclamation mark. And then finally, you can use it to show shouting. So when you're reading a book, you might see some speech that has an exclamation mark at the end. And that's because the person is shouting that sentence. Okay, now today we are going to be focusing on showing surprise. So using exclamation marks to show surprise in our exclamation sentences. Now, can you remember what an exclamation sentence is? Pause the video and have a think. Okay, Year 2, so let's find out what an exclamation sentence is. So I said we're using it to show surprise. And it always starts with how. So how kind you are, or what. What a great footballer you are. And it contains a verb. Can you see in both of our exclamation sentences, the verb is right at the end. It's are in both of these exclamation sentences, but it can be any verb that you need it to be, as long as it's at the end of your exclamation sentence, just before the exclamation mark. Now, the 2 types of exclamation sentences are formed in different ways, so they have different parts that make them up. So could you pause the video and have a quick look? What parts do you need in an exclamation sentence starting with what? And what parts do you need in an exclamation sentence starting with how? Can you remember from when we did our diary entries? Okay, Year 2, so let's look at this together. So this is an exclamation sentence starting with what? So we've got 2 examples here. So it starts with what, and then after the what, it has what's called a noun phrase. So it has an adjective and a noun. So you could even use your expanded noun phrases in this part. So can you see in one example, what large eyes? And in the next example, what a great footballer. So we've got our adjectives, which are large and great. And then we've got our nouns, which are eyes and footballer. And then after that, you have a pronoun, which is like you, I, we, they, or it could even be a noun like the dog or the flower or the bird. And then finally, you have your verb. So in this case, we have and are at the end of our sentence, like we had in the examples on the page before. Our verb is always at the end before our exclamation mark. So there you go. That's how you form an exclamation sentence starting with a what. Now, what do you think's different in how we set it out with an exclamation sentence starting with how? Pause the video and have a think. Okay, year two. So let's go back to our exclamation sentence starting with how. What do you notice that's different? Yes, that's right. Remember, with our exclamation sentence starting with what? We needed a noun phrase, which was an adjective and a noun. But with our how one here, we've only got an adjective. We've only got the adjective kind. So therefore, yes, after how, we only have an adjective, unlike when we start with what, and we have to have a noun phrase. So can you see in the examples here? It's how kind, there's our adjective, and how wonderful, there's our adjective in that one. And then like before, you have your pronoun, and then you end with your verb before your exclamation mark. So let's have a look at this a bit closer. Now we've got two sentences. How beautiful it is, what big eyes you have. Remember, that's what Little Red Riding Hood says to her grandma, isn't it? So let's start with how beautiful. So we've started with how, and then what comes after? Well, we've got beautiful. Well, what is this? What is beautiful? What type of word? Yes, that's right. It's an adjective. So remember, when we start with how, we always need an adjective after it. And after that, we have the pronoun and then end with the verb. And then we have the exclamation mark. Now, can you pause the video and have a go at labelling all the different parts of the exclamation sentence? What big eyes you have. Okay, year two. So we're starting with what? What do we have after what? Yes, you're right. We have a noun phrase. Now, what's our noun phrase in this one? Yes, it's big eyes, because remember, it needs to be made up of an adjective and a noun. So we've got big as our adjective and eyes as our noun. And then like before, we have our pronoun and our verb, have, and then finally our friend, the exclamation mark. Now here we have some sentences, some exclamation sentences that are missing the first word, and we need to decide if we need how or what. So let's have a look. The first one, happy he looked. Have we got a noun phrase or an adjective after the gap? We've got happy, haven't we? Adjective. There's no noun that's going with that. It's just the adjective happy. So therefore, we need how before it. Now let's do the next one together as well. What do we have after the gap? Yes, we have a lovely dog. Now, is that just an adjective? Because we've got lovely, that's our adjective. But no, we also have a noun. Can you see? A lovely dog. The adjective is describing the dog. So, do we need how or what before our noun phrase? Yes, you're right. We need what. What a lovely dog she has. Fantastic. Now, what I'd like you to do is pause the video and have a go at the next two on your own, okay? And then we'll come back to the video and see if you were correct. Okay, year two. So the next one, a glorious day is what we have after the gap. Now, what is a glorious day? Is it an adjective or a noun phrase? Brilliant. It's a noun phrase because look, it's got the adjective glorious and the noun day. So what do we need before it? How or what? Yes, we need what before it. We always have what before a noun phrase made up of an adjective and a noun. What about the next one? Generous you are. We've got the word generous. What type of word is generous? Yes, it's an adjective. So do we need how or what? Yes, we need how. We always have how before an adjective in an exclamation sentence. So yes, just to recap, before a noun phrase, we have what, and before an adjective, we have how.